Oh, 1 second. Let me try that again.
Okay. You could see them, right?
Everybody's waiting anticipation.
We're good.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the February 27th, 2024 Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting. If you're able, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We will start off with staff announcements this morning. Are there any staff that would have an announcement to make? Anybody online, Stacy?
There are no online requests.
All right, anybody from the board? All right, we'll move on to recognitions and acknowledgements. Item number 1.
Item number 1, proclamation, economic and community development. Approve a proclamation designating March 2024 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County.
Gary, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a proclamation recognizing March 2024 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County.
Yeah.
Ms. Mazzaferro.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Whereas March is officially recognized as California Arts Education Month by the California Department of Education, and whereas the state of California defines arts education to include courses of study and interdisciplinary learning in dance, music, theater, design, visual, written, and media arts. Boy, that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the arts are an essential part of a complete education, no matter if it happens in the home, school, or community. And whereas these experiences encourage creative learning in children and young adults. And whereas a well-rounded education should include the stimulation and creative thinking that arts help to develop. And whereas it is important that we recognize and celebrate the essential role of arts education in our schools. And whereas students of all ages benefit from the artistic learning, innovative thinking, and creativity. Is there any board comments? Staff comments?
There are no
None?
online.
We will open it up. Kathy.
Good morning, and thank you. I'm always so honored to appear before you to begin with, but especially as we head into March, which is Arts Education Month, as Gary just so eloquently read. We're very fortunate here in Calaveras County to have the 5 of you, because I listen to my counterparts who have arts councils at other counties, and they don't have you. They don't have your support. They don't have your encouragement, your involvement. And so I'm very grateful that all of you have such a keen appreciation for supporting the arts, both in our schools and in our communities at large here in Calaveras County. I want to just take a minute and invite you now, anytime during the month of March, please come into our gallery at 22 North Main Street, right across the street from the Calaveras Enterprise here in town. That's our Art Spirit show. And the gallery will be full of artwork created by our local high school students. Calaveras, Bret Harte, Mountain Oaks, homeschools are reached out to, and they have all of it. They have sculpture and clay and every kind of painting or medium. And the artwork is extraordinary. The teachers are phenomenal because they pack it all up and they bring it all over to the gallery and they install it. The middle of March, we will have a reception for the kids. And their artwork will be juried. They'll get little awards, even a little bit of cash, etc. But anytime during the month of March, please come by the gallery and see all of the spectacular student art. Thank you again for this wonderful proclamation. and for recognizing the importance of the arts to the lives of everyone here in Calaveras County.
Thank you, Kathy. Is there any public comments? No public comments. Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any online?
There are no, sorry, there's no online public comments.
I will bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Toffenelli. Thank you, Kathy.
Motion by Supervisor Stopper,
Second.
second by Supervisor Fallendorf. All in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors recognizes March 2024 as Arts Education Month in Calaveras County as a way to further strengthen the importance of the arts and share the message with friends, family, and communities. It's passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors, the County of Calaveras, State of California, this 27th day of February 2024.
Yes, but I never assumed things change too fast anymore. Yeah.
Jerry,
One, two, three, one, two, and again. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. We'll move on to item number 2.
Item number. Item 2, proclamation, Clerk of the Board of Supervisors proclaim the month of February 2024 as Civil Grand Jury Awareness Month in Calaveras County.
Thank you. I will hand the gavel over to Mr. Stopper.
Thank you, Chair Garamendi. Whereas every year in each of California's 58 counties, 19 ordinary citizens take an oath to voluntarily serve a term of 1 year as grand jurors. And whereas the grand jury system is brought to the United States with the colonists, and the first grand jury in America was impaneled in 1635. And whereas Calaveras County, one of the original 27 counties of the state, was organized at the 1849-1850 session of the California State Legislature, and whereas the grand jury is an independent investigative body, operationally separate from the entities and officials they investigate, and grand jurors are officers of the court under the guidance of the Calaveras County Superior Court presiding judge. And whereas certain responsibilities of the grand jury are mandated by state law, and the grand jury has jurisdictional rights to investigate city and county departments, school districts, and special districts. And whereas the grand jury is composed of 19 citizens who will represent the citizens of the county, making recommendations for improvements to our local government. And whereas the grand jury decides what areas of local government they're going to investigate or review during the year, one of the most important functions of the grand jury is to review the operations of the officers, departments, and agencies of local government and special districts. And whereas the grand jury receives and reviews complaints from the citizens within the county, and whereas the grand jury investigative process may or may not result in reports, those fact-finding reports identify specific problems and provide recommendations for governmental improvement and or identify commendations. And whereas the grand jury is recognized for their dedicated service, volunteering to make Calaveras County's governmental entities more efficient for the best interests of the community. Do we have a representative for the grand jury here? Thank you for your time and your volunteer.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Steinmates. I am the president of the Motherlode Grand Jury chapter. On behalf of the California Grand Jury, I'd like to thank you for this proclamation and on behalf of the chapter.
My name's Diane Lloyd, and I'm the foreperson of the 2024 Calaveras County Civil Grand Jury, and I am very proud to be foreperson. This is my second year. This time around, I've served as well 2 previous years. I want to thank the board, every department head, every staff member for the support you all show and the respect you give us when we ask about your jobs. You've been doing your jobs for a very long time, and we have a year to figure out how to provide for animals, how to build a road, how to put out fires, and just about anything you can think of to support the citizens of this county. It's a very hard job, yet you all have assisted us in doing the best job we possibly can. Our intent is to improve county government, and I believe we display that as we're working with you, never against you. And again, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate all the time that has been devoted to assisting the grand jury do its job. Every county staffer has my greatest respect for their willingness to be transparent, honest, and open. I thank you very much. And if anyone is interested in becoming a grand juror, which it's fascinating learning how to build a road, but if anyone is interested in learning how to become a grand juror, please look at the Superior Court website. There are also grand jury reports available on the county website. I think they go back 20 some years, so that you can see what the grand jury has done for the county as well. So thank you again for this opportunity and the support you've shown by this proclamation. We're very proud of it.
Thank you for your time. We're a government of the people, for the people. You are all our bosses, and it's phenomenal to have this oversight, and your participation in helping us with some guidance as we move forward on how to do things better. So thank you. Any comments by board members? Any further comments from anybody in the public? With that,
I'll move this item.
motion by Mr. Toffenelli.
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Hubbardy. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Passes in 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. Oh, I gotta read this down. Gotta finish. I apologize. No, I got a little too excited here. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors, County of Calaveras, State of California does hereby designate the month of February 2024 to be declared Civil Grand Jury Month in Calaveras County and to encourage citizen participation in the grand jury process. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That's one. You didn't know we were all gonna be here.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know that. We were here.
Pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. It's not-
1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Congratulations.
It's a lot out.
There's another proclamation.
All right, thank you guys very much. Item number 3.
Item 3, proclamation, District Attorney, adopt a proclamation declaring February 2024 as Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month throughout the county of Calaveras.
Thank you. I'll pass the gavel to Supervisor Hubbard.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas teen dating violence is controlling, abusive, and aggressive behavior in a romantic relationship and can include verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual abuse in person or via social media. And whereas all genders can be victims and perpetrators of teen dating violence. And whereas according to the National Council on Crime and Delinquency Focus, 1 in 3 adolescent girls in the United States is a victim of physical, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner, a figure that far exceeds victimization rates for other types of violence affecting youth. And whereas according to the National Resource Center on Domestic Violence, 3 in 4 parents have never talked to their children about this type of violence. And whereas high school students who experience teen dating violence are more likely to use drugs and alcohol, are at greater risk of suicide, and are much more likely to carry patterns of abuse into future relationships. And whereas victims of digital abuse and harassment are twice as likely to be physically abused, twice as likely to be psychologically abused, and 5 times as likely to be sexually coerced. And whereas by providing young people with education on healthy relationships and relationship skills, and by changing social attitudes that accept and support violence, teen dating violence can be prevented. And whereas everyone has the right to a safe and healthy relationship and to be free from abuse. With that, do we have any comments from the public?
Good morning, Barbara Uke, District Attorney. First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about this issue on a public forum, and also thank you for your consideration of this proclamation. Joining me here today is, well, first Celeste Mata from the Crisis Center, also Scott Nanick, Superintendent of the Bret Harte Union School District. I have a couple of the leaders from my own department. We have Kathy Leha, who is the lead advocate in our Victim Services Division, Mike Stone, who is our lead investigator with our Investigations Division. We also have numerous members of our Probation Department over there hanging out in the back. And also I just saw the sheriff walk in, so I'm assuming he's in support of this proclamation, although he did not return my text. So is that, not to put you on the spot, but yeah, okay, he is in support, obviously. And we also have a number of individuals in our community who are absolutely in support of this, but could not be present today due to scheduling conflicts, including Karen Vale, Superintendent of Schools for the county, Mark Campbell, who was the Superintendent of the Calaveras Unified School District, and Amy Hasselwander, who is the principal at Calaveras High. So, you know, that's a long list of people, but what's significant about that and why I spent the time listing all of those people is it shows you what a broad consensus and broad commitment we have in the county among our school districts and county agencies to face this and deal with it in some manner. You know, kids' safety in our community is extremely important to all of us. Even if you don't have kids, it should be important to you as members, future members of our community, and just the human aspect of the impact on our children. But it shows the commitment to the communication we have and to this issue to work on the awareness and the prevention with the ultimate goal of protecting our kids. What we are seeing a lot of, and I want to touch on, it was something that was mentioned in the proclamation that we might not be thinking of as abuse, is the abuse on social media. We definitely are seeing an uptick in that over the last couple of years. It takes many forms. First of all, it might start off as a dating relationship between people who have never met. It's not like it was when we were kids, and I'm not necessarily pointing at Amanda or Sarah, but the rest of us, sorry, Ben, but it's not like it was when we were kids. Kids start dating online with people they've never met before. We didn't have, the smartphones. We didn't, start off that way. And so it's very different these days. And these kids will start off just communicating with people online on the Instagram, I'll say Insta, right? Or the Snapchat. And they don't necessarily know who they're talking to. It could be someone in their school. It could be, a 35-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 65-year-old pervert, right? But these kids think, oh, this is my, relationship, right? And they may or may not be being catfished. But what happens really quickly at a shockingly fast pace is the sharing of intimate photos. Now, I don't understand why anybody does this anywhere at all, no matter what their age, but the kids are doing this, right? And so they start off sharing these photos. They believe they have a real relationship. And, if you think about it, when we were young or a teenager, that first love, that's a special feeling and it's real for them, right? Their parents don't necessarily know about it, which makes sense, right? So once these kids become victimized, and they might become victimized before it's too late, before they realize what happened, it's too late. And who are they going to tell, right? Are they really going to tell their parents that they did this? So these things happen to adults, and it's hard enough for adults to report. Think about how it is if you're a teen, right? Maybe you weren't supposed to be using your phone. Maybe you weren't supposed to be communicating with someone. Maybe you weren't supposed to be sharing photos, but you did. And things have escalated beyond your control. So I think we need to think about how difficult it is on our teenagers in our community. What also happens is once those pictures are shared, I think a lot of kids think that they're gone. If they especially did it on Snapchat, they're not gone. So the perpetrators have ways of keeping copies of those photos. Also, we have ways of getting them when we do search warrants. So my team spends a lot of time doing search warrants on phones, on Snapchat, on Instagram, on whatever weird app is out there. And we find those photos, we find those communications, and we build cases based on that. So the perception that I'm just sharing it with this one person, it's going to go away, is just not true. And now what we're seeing is an escalation of revenge porn and extortion. Hey, I got this picture of you. If you don't do X, Y, or Z, or give me money, I'm going to blast it out there, right? We're seeing this in our community right now. And when I say teens, this is Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. You might be thinking, 17, 18, 19. Sure. But also 13, okay? This is what we're seeing right now, okay? So again, this is a commitment with our schools, our county departments, to try to deal with this the best that we can. And we appreciate your support. Looks like Celeste might have a couple of things to say. All right.
Yes, my name is Celeste Mata. I'm the interim director of the Calaveras Crisis Center and the Calaveras Children's Advocacy Center. We both programs offer support to teens, and we are seeing an uptick also in teen dating violence from the ages of 13 to 17. This last year, we have had 8 victims of teen dating violence, 1 victim of pornography, 5 victims of stalking, and there's also 42 victims of teen bullying that's considered verbal, cyber, or physical bullying from the ages of 7 to 17. So some of the services that our center provides is support groups, peer counseling, professional counseling, and we also provide support accompaniment to the hospital or to court restraining order process. And we have an outreach, our community outreach, and educators go into the schools. So we go into the schools here in Calaveras County, and they present the curricula for teen dating violence in the schools. They also started the younger grades with the anti-bullying and things like that, because that's where it starts, and that's where the parents need to start talking to the children about it. And as Barbara said, many of the parents don't even talk to their children about any kind of bullying or teen violence. So that's what we're doing. And the Children's Advocacy Center is a center that provides therapy for it. We do interviews there, forensic interviews, therapy, professional therapy, and resource and referral for victims of trauma. So I just wanted to invite the board, if you ever want to come to the Children's Advocacy Center, if you haven't been there, you are welcome to do that. Just get a hold of me at the Calaveras Crisis Center and I'll make arrangements for you to go over there. I think you would really enjoy it. It's quite a place. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Scott Nanick, Superintendent Bret Harte Union High School District. And this issue touches our kids a lot, and our kids are much more fragile than I think we realize. My wellness department on campus has 5 full-time staff just to deal with the social and emotional issues of our students. So you throw this into the mix and it sends students over the top very quickly. So I want to praise you guys for this proclamation. It's highly important. It puts the conversation out there in the public and tells kids that it's important that we talk about this information. I think I plan on getting a copy and it'll be posted in the room where we do our sex ed for our freshmen every year. So thank you.
What is the student population at your high school?
600.
600. You have 5 full-time.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Leha. I've been with the District Attorney's Office 18 years next month. And approximately 8 of those, I've been the lead of our Victim Services Department. We handle and see crime victims of all types. As Barbara and Celeste talked, they discussed the statistics of our nation today in our domestic violence for teens. Teen dating violence is the form of intimate partner violence that occurs between 2 people in a close relationship. There's 4 types of physical. That's our physical violence, sexual violence, psychological aggression, and stalking. But let's talk about today's culture. Today's culture, our teens are reported spending 9 hours a day on social media. With that being said, we've seen a rise in our technology-facilitated abuse. Technology-facilitated abuse is a tactic of violence such as cyber stalking and non-consensual sharing of intimate images, such as revenge porn. These are just a few ways that are used to maintain power and control over another. Whether this type of abuse is experienced through simple means or more complex, the experience of it is just as persuasive and traumatic as other tactics of teen violence. With this being said, some of us want to restrict our children from social media, but remember that that's not helpful and it's not healthy. Media use is a part of our human existence in modern culture, whether we like it or not. In order to raise healthy, functional humans that contribute to society, we must teach them to become critical consumers of knowledge and media. This means having the conversations with them about the media they use. To do this, we must engage our teens in education, open communication, and model healthy relationships. February is National Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. So keep in mind that although we're discussing this through the lens of our teenage relationships, dating violence is very real across all age ranges, and the same concepts apply. Let's raise awareness about teen dating violence and promote safe, healthy relationships. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Mike Stone. I'm the lead investigator with the District Attorney's Office. And just this last year and as recent as yesterday, I've written over 20 search warrants for cases where children, teenagers are being abused. Many of that is for social media and data, cell phones. And I've spent hours upon hours reviewing, message content between teenagers of the emotional and communication abuse and tons of pictures and videos of the sexual and physical abuse that goes on. And in my experience, what I've seen is that these victims don't even realize that they're victims. These teenagers don't even realize what they're doing is wrong. I've spent hours tracking down victims that I've seen in social media, pictures, videos where I've tracked them down. And when you speak to them, they don't even realize that they're victims. And so we need to build awareness of what is going on and make them aware that what they're doing is not okay. But at the same time, let them know that we're there to help them. We're there to support them and listen to them. We need to, just explain to them what they can do and how to be smart online, and how these things don't necessarily go away. So we need to invest in our youth. I don't believe there's any better investment that we can make. Thank you.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Devil Springs. I met my abuser when I was 15. It was 1963. There was no term domestic violence, never heard of it. I was involved with someone of a different nationality, so I couldn't talk about it with my mother because I wasn't supposed to be with him. I snuck around for years. Finally married the SOB when I was 20. He was drafted. We went to Georgia. He was in the service. I was really isolated. 3,000 miles from home, getting beat up every day, screaming, neighbors on top of us, around us. Nobody came because it was okay. He was sent to Korea. I escaped. All I can say is it never gets better. It only gets worse unless you make the big change and get out.
Good morning, board members. Sheriff DiBasilio. How's everybody doing today? You look chipper. I'll talk a little bit about when I was a school resource officer from 2004 to 2008. Facebook wasn't a thing back then. Instagram, Snapchat wasn't, but we had MySpace. And believe it or not, back then, even with MySpace, it was a huge, huge issue. I'm not going to go over everything that these other folks already talked about. You guys get the gist of it. But I'm proud to be a part of you folks making this awareness for our teens, because it's very important, because a lot of them, as they have said, they don't understand they're victims until it's too late. And then it's hard for them to step up to the plate to say, hey, mom or dad, this is what's going on. So we see it a lot. We see it in our adults with domestic violence even. So I appreciate what you folks are doing. Thank you.
Seeing no other further comment, is there any comment online?
There are no public comments online.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board.
If I may, I have a daughter that's 15 now, and everything going on these days, and even in the past, scares the heck out of me. And it's not just they aren't aware that they're victims. Sometimes with the disconnect on social media, people don't realize they're perpetrators and how they're doing things because of the disconnect. That what they're fully doing is wrong. And there's a realization there that they need to learn also that you can't talk and be the instigator of these issues at the same time. And that's a conversation we have with our kids, because we've been on the receiving end, and I've heard her talk on social media, and I tell her, look, that's not a good way to talk to people, and that can be considered a bad thing also. So just with that, I just want to say that, it's a motion. I motioned. I move.
I'll second. Thank you, Chair. With that, therefore,
We need to take a vote.
oh, thank you. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now therefore be it proclaimed February 2024 Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. throughout the county of Calaveras. The Board of Supervisors urges all citizens, agencies, and educators to promote awareness about teen dating violence and to work towards ending teen dating violence by empowering young people to develop healthier relationships and assisting victims in assessing the information and supportive services they need. Thank you.
One, two, three. Yes. One. Thank you.
All right, that was a heavy load. But thank you for everybody sticking with us through the recognitions and acknowledgements. We're going to move on to public comment. I see we've got a lot of our friends in purple here today. There's an item in the consent agenda. If you want to pull that out and comment on that item, since it's on the agenda, I will wait for then. But is there public comment in the room? And we're going to stick with 3 minutes. So stand up and get in there. Terry, you looks like you're first.
Thank you. This has been an incredibly inspiring morning to think of the phenomenal people that are a part of our community. What I wanted to talk about is, on January 27th, Terry McBride, New California State Committee Chair and Senator. January 27th, we held a demo election. This is the results. We were one of 17 counties. Amador did it too. The New California State demo election were a huge success and reminder to every citizen and all county boards across California how quickly and effectively hand counting ballots at the precinct level is. And while many hand counting methods would be just as successful, New California chose the Colorado clear box method. Here are the results. New California was able to tally just under 1,000 ballots simultaneously in 20 minutes across the state. The quickest tallying times were 16 to 17 seconds per ballot. Using the Colorado method, if we double the tallying time to 32 seconds per ballot, each 1,200 voter precinct could have those 1,200 ballots tallied simultaneously in less than 3 hours. After the last voter has cast their vote, and the entire state's results will be posted on election night. In other words, same day results. We're kind of missing that, aren't we? Citizens shared the NCS's tallying method was more efficient than the tallying process they remembered before the machines were implemented. And with clear ballot boxes and an observation tallying method, the voters experienced a completely transparent election from start to finish. No part of the election process was hidden from the voters. All California state county boards need to recognize that the elections belong to the citizens, not county officials, and certainly not state or federal entities. The citizens demand that the control of their elections be returned, and that the hand counting in small precincts be reinstated immediately. How much money each county will save by removing the electronics from our voting system is astounding. Return our elections back to we the people. I want to tell you that I talked to a lot of the folks that came. We had a pretty doggone good turnout, actually. And folks I didn't even know. They saw a vote here and they stopped their truck and came in. Well, we need proof of residency. I don't have anything. Do you have your car registration? I sure do. They go out and get it. I had one person that had been walking by, saw a vote here sign, and they were walking. Somebody gave them a ride home so they could get their PG&E bill. People want to vote in person. People didn't even know what we were voting about. You know what we were voting about? We were voting about voting in person, showing your ID, one-day voting, being a citizen. These are important to the people of this state and surely of this county. And so I'm asking you to see about going back to paper ballots, get rid of these machines. Thank you.
Other public comment in the room? All right. Oh, Al?
Thank you, Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. There's a ballot initiative to increase the sales tax. And in the information that you receive on the ballot, it indicates that the amount of the increase is 1%. Well, in a way, that's almost true, except when you move from 7.5% to 8.5%, the difference is 13%. You actually have to pay 13% more cash. Well, so what? Well, one of the consequences of that is that it's hard to support local business. Local business really, the amount of tax their customers pay can affect whether they're going to have customers or not. And it's true that in the case of food, there's no sales tax, but practically everything else is. So if people can become aware, especially in news media, of what the real cost of the tax increase is. If you want to do the figures, divide 8.5% by 7.5%. You come out with 1.133. And this is the true amount of money that you pay. If you bought it, say a $10,000 item, you're going to pay $130 more if you buy in this county. And so it's because of this, it's really hurtful, and it'd be good to get the public aware of this before Election Day. Thank you very much.
Other public comment in the room? Bonnie?
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. 20 years ago, I'm not going to talk about a contract. I'm going to talk about the union that failed. 20 years ago, we organized in Calaveras County home care workers and negotiated a contract in 2005, which gave us $1 an hour increase. 2 years later, we negotiated our second contract, which gave us $2 an hour above minimum wage increase. The president of the union at that time was a guy named Sal Rosselli. He capped his pay at the highest wages of an employee in the union, which was $127,000. And that was, I think, a X-ray technician. Well, he was a man for the people. He started socking away money instead of sending it to international. He was going to start a union on his own. They caught on and sacked him. Then they brought in this new guy, Dave Regan, the smarmiest of people you'd ever want to meet. He came in 2008. He did no contracts for us in 7 years. We began a contract, but Kaiser got in trouble, so he canceled everything and went to Kaiser's rescue. In 2015, we got a new regime run by 4 people who were presidents and vice presidents. That was in 2015. It's 9 years later. 9 years we've been asking for contracts. 5 years ago, we negotiated one, which the members of the negotiation team at that time, although not official, hammered out $1 an hour raise the first year, $1.50 an hour raise the second year, and $2 the third year. Someone from administrative office contacted the union and said, we're ready to negotiate. The union said, we're not. We have other things to do. So 5 years later, they finally come up with, I believe, 99 cents. 99 cents after 9 years. This is a union that has failed its members. They're more interested in the upper guys. The president of our union makes over $250,000 a year. We're still minimum wage. Where's the justice?
Thank you. We're gonna call up I'm gonna call up, unless you want to, if you're talking, speak about the contract.
gonna just make a really quick comment.
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. We're gonna, Bonnie threaded pretty close to the line there on.
Oh, I'm
On the-
the chief negotiator. I'm actually.
Do you want to speak to item 15 on the agenda, the contract?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's coming up next, promise. And we'll pull that off for you. All right, seeing no further public comment, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there items on the consent agenda from the Board of Supervisors that want to be pulled? Any from the public? We'll pull 15 in anticipation, since you always want to talk about that. Anybody else in the room or online? What? Just one moment, ma'am. Just 1 second. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody?
There are no online requests.
Very well. We'll move forward with the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Okay, the motion second is to approve all the items, pulling out item 15. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move on to item 15, Madam Clerk.
Item 15, resolution, human resources. Adopt a resolution approving modifications to the Service Employees International Union Local 2015 Memorandum of Understanding for the term of February 27, 2024 to June 30th, 2027.
Thank you. Judy, do you have anything you want to add to this? Or Nick?
Good morning, board. Nick Marvin, Senior HR Analyst with the Human Resources Division here for Calaveras County, and we were planning on pulling it as well. Just wanted to pull it for discussion for the union to come up and have their chance to speak as well. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank SEIU 2015 for the collaboration with the negotiations, as well as the board for all of your help with this and the bargaining team from HHSA. With that, I would like to move on to.
Thank you.
I believe Sean wants to come up and speak. So yes.
We'll move this to public comment. Sean, if you could, I'm going to ask one quick question to the board, just to stay, come on up. Are there any questions from the board before we move to public comment? Donna?
Hi, my name is Sean Pagano. I'm actually the chief negotiator of SEIU 2015 lead organizer. We know this is a long time coming. This has been a very expired contract. I do respect Bonnie and I respect her point of view. I speak for SEIU. And we are very happy for this partnership. This has been an expired contract with UHW. This is SEIU 2015. We are the largest union in the nation. We've made that top now. This year we're recognized as that. We feel that this is a partnership going forward. Is it 99 cents above minimum wage? Yes. These are care providers, and they're care providers that take care of their loved ones and care providers that take care of your loved ones. We feel that we're satisfied because of the fact that this is a partnership going forward. SEIU is proud of the partnership with the county going forward. We know this is a step in the very first contract for SEIU 2015. Myself, my bargaining team, who is present, they're very proud of their accomplishment. They look forward in being more present in this county, and they look forward to a partnership going forward. And as the economy goes, hey, who knows? But we are happy to be a partner now with Calaveras County. And I want to thank Nick for working with us. And, we look forward to the future. We're very hopeful and we appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the work that all your members do. Are there other comments? Anybody else? You guys all showed up. Bonnie, you got 3 minutes.
Pardon?
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. What I wanted to say was, I'm not mad at anybody in this room here. I understand their limitations. What I'm mostly concerned about is the years of promises and the the direction that this union might be heading in. We have absorbed an agenda that was shoved down our throats. It's called a justice agenda. For the past 9 years, instead of focusing on updating expired contracts, the union has been trying to change the world. Immigration, housing, the environment, all worthy things, but where has the home care worker been? We've been forking over our peon dues for 9 years to a union that's barely stepping up. You're right, it's a start, but I'm so disappointed. I quit paying dues about 5 years ago when the wages of the president went up to $240,000 a year. I couldn't stomach it. I'd been on the negotiating team. I'd been on all the contracts. And suddenly, I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't the union. Yay, I'm going to be a union person. It wasn't what I thought. This is a corporate entity where the highest people have gotten raise after raise after raise. When us peon workers continue to plug away, making noise, we get shut down. I was not allowed to be on their e-board because I had a big mouth. So that just tells you the kind of organization that's being run. I called it a racketeering organization. I stand by that. I think they are. I think they do exploit the little people for their own benefit. Thank you for your time.
Bonnie, other public comment, sir? Have 3 minutes.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank my negotiating team. It was definitely an experience getting to know some of you and the negotiating the Board of Supervisors a little bit. I thank you for your patience and working with us. A couple months ago, I came up here, spoke for the first time publicly about me and my son and the path that we're on. And from what I understand, that touched everybody in the room, and I appreciate that. Appreciate the hard work that you all do, both for the county and for our union. And I'm looking forward to the next few years of work and seeing where we end up. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Stopper.
You know, this is definitely a different type of negotiation than we're used to. The state controls what we can do, but then we make a vote on it. So they set forth certain things we can and can't do, and you know, it's outside the normal scope of what we're used to working on. That said, stay organized, stay on top of it, continue year to year, and you continue to benefit yourself in the best way as you move forward. You all deserve more than you get, and you know, for your type of service. And I wish it was within our power to do more for you. But thank you for getting organized and getting it done. Now we could have taken the first step towards benefiting you more as you move forward. With that, I have a motion.
Supervisor Hubbard.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. I want to echo Supervisor Stopper's comments that I'm glad that we got this done. It's a long time coming. I think I speak on behalf of the board. We value what you do and we understand it in our community and the important role it plays in keeping our community whole. And thank you very much for the work. I'm glad we were able to get this done. We have a motion and a second. There are further comments from the board. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you guys very much. All right. Anybody need a quick break before we move on to the regular agenda? All right. Thank you guys. All right, move on to regular agenda. Item number 25.
Item 25, agreement, human resources, authorize the board chair to execute an amendment to the Evergreen Solutions LLC contract for the countywide classification and compensation study, extending the contract term to June 1, 2024.
Judy?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Management Director. We are bringing before you a amendment to our Evergreen contract, which is doing our class and comp study, countywide class and comp study. We are asking for the agreement to be extended to June 30th, but that is so that they have enough time to complete job descriptions. We will be bringing a presentation to your board on March 26th and with Evergreen's recommendation. So the extension till June is just to give us enough time to complete the entire process. And also there is not an increase in funding. It is strictly the timeline.
Is there any public comment on this item? Is there any public comment online?
There is no online public comment.
Very well, seeking a.
Sorry, just very
Counsel?
briefly for clarification, I just noted when Ms. Hawkins stated that there's a typo in the recommendation. It says extending the contract term to June 1. I apologize for not catching that. It is June 30th as explained in the staff report and as Ms. Hawkins just said.
So it's in the resolution.
Yes, the contract itself has the right dates. It's just in the line.
Gotcha. All right. Seeing no public comment, is there a motion?
Move.
So moved by Supervisor Fallendorf. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judy. Item 26.
Item 26, agreement planning, authorize board chair to enter into agreement with Miller Planning Associates with a term of January 1, 2024 to December 31st, 2024 as and an amount not to exceed $57,170 to complete remaining work on the county's zoning ordinance update. Receive brief progress update from the planning department.
Thank you very much. Gabriel, is this your item? 26? Walk right in the room and right up the podium.
Right on time. Yes, it is. So what we have today is just to request some additional time to complete the zoning code update. When we came to you in 2022 or so, we anticipated a 2-year process. During deliberations, we decided it was going to be 1 year because we thought we were going to get the job done. But once the planning commission actually got into this, and with having meetings on Wednesdays and Thursdays, we are just about at a point where we've gone a little bit beyond the midway point. And as you could see from the memo attached by Gina, who is the planner in charge of the zoning code update, she actually identifies what we have accomplished. There is no additional funds being requested. I think there's about $57,000 left on the contract. It's the only thing is the contract expired at the end of 2023. So this extension allows us to carry the work forward.
Questions from the board? Mr. President Fallendorf.
Just to clarify, there is, it's already been budgeted, so there's no additional funds that are being proposed. It's
Absolutely,
just
yes.
timeline like the last one.
It's just a timeline. It says timeline issue.
Okay.
Other questions, Supervisor Toughnot?
Is this going to be enough time? Are we going to get this thing to the planning commission this year and then to the board? Because it just keeps dragging on and dragging on. I know the amount's not increasing, but
Yeah.
You're right. This is almost 2 years now that
It-
we're going and we're asking for an extension.
Right.
So I don't know what the delays are, but I'm just looking at the timeline that you have here, that it'll be complete in September 2024. So hopefully by then we can get it to the planning commission and then to the board.
Absolutely.
So that's gonna work. You're not
It's
gonna
gonna
come in
work.
September and tell us we need more time.
Well,
I I want to get it done right.
Yes,
I want to make sure everything is covered in it. But still,
absolutely.
the timeline just seems to be dragging on. So.
Well, I think based on what we've done and what needs to be done, we should have it done by September. No later than that. And there is not going to be any extensions for additional funds because we are working within the budget itself. It's just that when we got into the deliberations, it became very, very, very lengthy. And our planning commission is very diligent. So we're yeah.
I'm right.
I do have to say there's at least one or two very diligent people on the planning commission that, make sure that all the commas and periods are in the correct spot, so.
If they're there in the first place, they wouldn't have to comment.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the board? Very well. Gabriel, last time we did this, you promised me by December 2023.
I did.
I've got a few months left in this job. I would really like to finish this up this year. So bring it to the Plan Commission in September. I like to have it for the board.
It will be
Because we're
done.
going to have a lot of comments and thoughts on it as well.
Absolutely.
The only one more detail oriented than my planning commissioners, perhaps me.
Thank you.
So any public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back for the board for motion.
Move.
Moved by Supervisor Fallenberg. Second. Second by Supervisor Toffenelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0, and we'll get that in September. Yes, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. We're gonna come back here at 10:10, a little less than 10 minutes. All right, welcome back to the Board of Supervisors meeting. We are on item 27. Stacy?
Item 27, action item, Administrative Office. 1, receive the fiscal year 23-24 mid-year budget presentation. 2, approve the mid-year budget adjustments included in attachments A and B. And 3, approve the mid-year capital request included as attachment C. Requires a 4/5 affirmative vote of the board.
Thank you. Marcos?
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Marcos Munoz, Assistant County Administrative Officer. Today, we're here to present the mid-year report for the 23-24 budget. All right, our agenda today is to first go over where we stand in mid-year. So that portion will be a little numbers heavy, but then we will get into what's actually in this report in terms of what requests are in it. And then from there, we will dive into looking for a little bit of direction on the 24-25 budget process. So, all right, so where are we at mid-year? So as of December 31st, we are, well, first let's go back to what our budget was. Our budget was approved, our operating funds at just under $240 million. Of that, the general fund had 81 million in appropriations and about 72.5 in revenue. So at final budget, we also had a $2.5 million structural deficit. We did budget contingencies at 1.8 million, which is above the policy minimum, as well as our reserve account is at just under 5.4 million, which is at the policy minimum. So as of December 31st, but first, before I jump into it, I do want to point out one thing. When you look at the total on the revenues, it does slightly vary from what's on the previous slide, and the same as with the expenditures. I just want to point out the difference. The difference is this slide contains TOT as well as any adjustments that may have occurred since final budget. So for example, when somebody brings to the board a grant that was received, let's say it was for, I believe the jail brought, or the sheriff brought one for $30,000. The revenue and the expenditures are added into the budget, and that's what that adjustment line represents. And we keep TOT in a special revenue fund, and so it wasn't rolled up in the previous number. So that is what the difference is between the total on this slide versus the totals on the previous one. And so with that, at mid-year, we are coming in at 45.6% total of revenue. We are slightly under that 50% mark. We tend to receive more revenue in the second half of the year. For example, when I look at my fines, forfeitures, and penalties lines, it shows us at 11.77%. But that's also where our teeter revenue comes in. And teeter's budgeted at 1.4 million, and we tend to see that in June. And so that's why that number is lower. Additionally, we don't see PG&E franchise fees until the second half of the year. So that's also dropping the license permits and franchise fees to 29%. But overall, we are at 45.6%. In the last few fiscal years, we've been in the same ballpark, about 47%. So we're in line with where we have been in past years on our revenue. Another way to look at it is when you look at some of our notable revenues, that orange line that goes across the screen is the 50% mark. So in looking at property taxes and property taxes, we're coming in at 58.73%. Credit to our assessor who has been working on our backlog to get that caught up, and she continues to make progress on that. When it comes to sales tax and Prop 172, those are slightly below the 50% mark. Prop 172 is also based on sales tax, and so that's why you see those trending about the same amount. We are doing well on VLF. We're coming in at 54.45%, and TOT is our biggest one, coming in just under 60% of what was budgeted. We are seeing a dip in excise tax as we are just under 45% there. So comparison to prior year, how is our revenues looking compared to last year? When you look at the bottom line in the bottom right corner, we are up just under 4% compared to last year. So dollar for dollar, our revenues at this point in time have come in higher than last year. A couple of areas to note: interest. As we all know, interest rates have gone up, so our interest is up. You see, we budgeted 462 and we're already at 478 for the year, so that number has gone up. And then, all right. So we're going to jump to expenditures. So when it comes to expenditures, we're at 41.5% of what was budgeted. And so if you look at salaries and benefits and services and supplies, we're right on 44% or just above. And our capital assets, we have spent 58.64, and that's important because we don't like to carry over capital assets to the next year. So we continue to push to get all those capital assets ordered and in. In comparing to last year, how are we doing? We're up 2.38%. We did give COLAs this year, and so that's contributing to part of that increase. Also, step progression increases to why salaries and benefits is going up. Services and supplies is up. It looks like it's up 11% over last year. It doesn't look like it. It is up 10.96%. Overall, we did see increases in our services and supplies when we budgeted. Due to inflation and other factors, we also added $1 million towards the McKay's grant in this budget that went under services and supplies. And so that contributes to that 11% increase. Overall, when you look at the numbers compared to last year, we are up less than 1%. So what does this mean for mid-year? The takeaways from it are TOT and property tax are performing better than anticipated. However, our sales tax, our Prop 172 are underperforming, and excise tax is also underperforming. And I'm working with Doug, our building official, on the excise tax to see if we can figure out how to turn that back around to get it to where we need it to be. Expenditures are also are not at that 50%. They're at 41.5%. And so they're holding flat compared to last year. But the good news is when you compare the total dollar amount of expenditures and revenue, we are sitting flat. There's a difference of less than $20,000. And on an $81 million budget, that is virtually flat. So what is in mid-year budget? What are the requests? So when it comes to positions, the district attorney has requested a reclassification from a district attorney investigator to a chief district attorney investigator. That reclassification will come with a price tag of roughly $30,000 in the first year. And that is the reason for the request is to satisfy post requirements. Recently, the DA's office went through an audit, and it was part of the finding was that their district attorneys need to report to a post-certified individual. And this is a chief. In order to meet that, we're looking to add the chief. The district attorney did also request a salary adjustment to the district attorney investigators. Administration at this time is not recommending that with the class and comps survey coming back in a few weeks. We are not recommending that until we see the results of those. And so the top section we did put in mid-year budget, the bottom section is not in there, but I wanted to be transparent and let you know what else was requested. And that's all for the personnel. Outside of personnel, we're going to jump into the capital asset requests that are in mid-year budget. So the district attorney is requesting a copy machine. Their current lease expired in December of 2023. Administration looked at the cost of purchasing versus the cost of leasing. We determined it's about even, and so we are recommending to move forward with the request of purchasing a copy machine. Elections is looking to reduce their appropriations they had in the budget, as well as the next three facilities, sheriffs, and OES are asking to shift appropriations in their budget to purchase for facilities. It's a dump trailer. For the sheriff's office, it is equipment. And for OES, it is ballistics equipment. So Just to recap, the DA is requesting an increase of 13,000, elections is reducing, and the other three are shifting appropriations in the capital assets. When I move over to non-general fund, integrated waste is requesting the purchase of a tire derimmer. Our vendor is no longer taking tires from the public with rims on it. And so the derimmer will allow us to remove the rims in order for our vendors to remove the tires from our facilities. And then public access TV is looking at utilizing PEG capital equipment fees in order to purchase and upgrade studio equipment. And moving into CIP adjustments, the assessor is going through a remodel. After we've received all the quotes and worked with the architects, there is an increase of $30,000 to that remodel. As well as in the jail, this is mostly administrative cleanup. When we shifted from one year to the next, there was some miscommunication with where we were exactly on that, and we shorted the amount we needed in there. Additionally, part of that $70,000 includes a 6,600 change order that we had as well. And then the airport, when we switched from the airport manager, from our previous one to our current one, we missed the CIP project in the budget. So we are requesting at mid-year to add the CIP project expenditures along with the revenue to the budget. And then we have a mid-year CIP request for roads and public works. We are looking to increase the wagon trail funding to 21,942,000. And then we also are adding guardrails, additional funding to the guardrails upgrades. And then we are increasing also the Valley Springs school safety improvements. In addition, we're also requesting a new request, and that's the Oberns Ferry Road guardrail. So moving on to what else is in the budget. So that covers CIPs, that covers capital requests and personnel. We also have a few other things that are listed in this budget. Back in, I believe it was the fall, we bargained with a couple of unions regarding the incentive pay. Well, all of those adjustments related to that are in this budget. We needed to make sure the money was going to the correct places. As well as there were two individuals that for timing reasons, they were in one union, transferred to another, and they were missed. And so those two individuals were added into this budget as well. And then I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm just going to highlight some of the requests that are in the budget. We have, and I'm just trying to catch up to my notes. We have, we are increasing interest as we saw on the previous slide. We've already exceeded our budgeted amount for interest. So we increased it by $100,000, which is very conservative. We also, which I'm going to ask for directions in a few slides here, we're reducing the project cost of the winter storms that occurred by $1.9 million. So as we have it in this budget, we have it returning to capital. Again, I'll be asking for a little more direction on that in a few slides here. On the next slide, the library has received a grant of just under $58,000. So mid-year contains the revenue and the expenditures associated with that. Animal Service is asking for a draw at mid-year in the amount of $84,000, and that's to cover extra hire costs, an increase in overtime, and increase in vet costs. As we go through it, we've also, one thing to note, I want to point out the building department here. The building department is putting a reduction in their revenue, a sizable reduction of $763,000. They are offsetting that with their building special revenue fund of just under $500,000. And they're also from vacant positions have salary savings of another $200,000 that are helping to offset that reduction. And then planning department also, they had a grant in here that was the revenue was received in the prior year, and so we had to take that out. They did reduce expenditures as well, but it still resulted in a net draw of $56,000. In the non-general fund area, we do have a couple of things as well. We have PATVs requesting $23,000. Again, that's using those PEG fees. We also have a deposit into the PG&E settlement fund of $103,000, and that's coming back from the fairgrounds and their project. And then we have mental health, and just to point out, this mental health this year is the first year they've started a new billing process with the state. Whereas before they were reimbursed as soon as they sent claims up, they would get reimbursed within a month. Now it's a different process. Now they send everything up, including the match, and have to wait for the state to review it. And that new process in this year is taking much longer than anticipated. And so they are backfilling their revenue with special revenue funds until this whole process gets sorted out and the money comes back more timely. They are not losing any money. It's just being held for a longer time at the state level. And the same is happening with substance abuse as well.
Those have gone up.
The billing amounts, yes, have gone up with the new mandates. It's just now they're trying to audit it before they send it back, before they would send it back and audit. Yes, correct. And then the road department also has some increases in their budget, as well as one thing I do want to point out, the rim set aside. So the board approved a few years back, $2.25 million to be placed in a reserve account for Wagon Trail Phase 2. So in mid-year budget, we are reserving that amount so that it is visible in the budget. So if you're to look at the budget, you can clearly identify that's what it was reserved for. So we are making that adjustment because right now, when you look at the budget, it's not clear that's reserved. And so that is also in the budget that we're just reserving that amount. And so those are the requests that are in mid-year budget. We did touch on a couple of things that I will be looking for direction on the next slide. And that is, oops, two more. Let me go through this. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead there. And so for next year, we are starting the budget process. We are distributing instructions on March 1st. And then we will start to meet with departments beginning in April. And right now we have a budget hearing scheduled for the second week in June, with final coming back in September with technical adjustments. Things to note, our structural deficit after mid-year remains at $2.5 million. So with the request that we just mentioned in the budget, there is no increase to the structural deficit. All increases in expenditures were also balanced out with revenues that either went up or expenditures that were decreased. We are still seeing an economy that is uncertain. We are still seeing inflation in our economy. We do have bargained MOU increases as well as a class and comp study, and those are considerations that we are taking into account as we move into the 24-25 budget. And so I'm here today. I'm presenting the mid-year adjustments as well as looking for approval on those adjustments. I'm also looking for any direction towards the 24-25 recommended budget. Two specific things that I am looking for direction on are the PG&E settlement contingencies and the disaster funding. So the disaster funding, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is we have $1.9 million coming back currently in mid-year budget because we had to put it somewhere. We have it returning to capital. But I'm looking to see if the board has any other direction for that 1.9. Just options off of the top of my head are go back to capital. It can go into a disaster account where we cash flow if we are to see any other disasters in this county. But there are, the board could direct any other option. Those are just a couple off the top of my head that I can think of. Additionally, I'm looking for the PG&E settlement money. So we, the board, authorized through December 31st of 2023. The expenditures related to the settlement funding. As of right now, with the reimbursement of the $103,000, there's $1.3 sitting there. This is separate from the $1 million that is set aside for audit related to that account. And I have the same questions that I do with the disaster funding. We can leave it in the PG&E account. We can move it to capital. We can move it into a disaster, or we can utilize it for something else. I'm looking for direction on how we should move with those two items.
All right. We'll go to questions. I'm sorry, Marcus, did you have more?
The following one is just the acknowledgement slide. I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors and the auditors, IT, the CEO staff, as well as human resources and all the departments and their fiscal staff that participated in this. So, thank you.
Supervisor Stopper, you get your light on first.
I'll just start with a few small things. First of all, thank the staff and everyone for the work we've gotten to this point. You know, the reduction in structural deficit is significant. You know, it's been a thing ever since I got on this board. It's something for us to work on. And within the last year and a half, 2 to 2 years, you know, we've seen that difference. And I appreciate all the good work top to bottom that it took to get us there, because it takes some innovative thinking. That said, you know, I'm all for the DA getting the $13,000 copy machine. One thought about that, you know, working with other entities, is those things can be problematic. So is there a guarantee, a warranty with that, so that service is, if we buy it, is the service as good as the lease service? You know, and with things like that, because once you have a problem with one of those type of machines, it's like half the price to fix it.
So we do have, so once we buy the machine, it is our machine. When we lease it, so there's two different ways. I dealt with all of the copy machines when I was at Health and Human Services, and I became quite familiar with them. So the way it works is, when you lease a machine, they're building in the cost over a 5-year period. And the reason why they build it over a 5-year period, they call that the obsolescence date. So after 5 years, they stop making parts for that machine, so that you're forced to replace it. When you purchase it, there are still those parts on the market. And so I have seen you can tend to get about 7 years out of it. However, you do run the risk, if it does break down before that 5 years, that you're looking to replace it sooner. That is a possibility. In my experience, in the 7 years I was at Health and Human Services, I believe there was only one machine we replaced in less than 5 years, but we replaced several others, and they all seem to last longer than that 5-year period.
Makes sense to me. Thank you, Marcos. I have a lot more, but I'll let the.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask regarding the structural deficit. I mean, your opinion on that mid-year. I mean, can we take some of these settlement funds and disaster funding to bring that down?
We could, yes. So right now, and of course, we're early, we still have 4 months left in the year. We could take that disaster fund and we can budget it towards the structural deficit, but because it's one-time money, it's only affecting it right now. It's not going to affect it in the next year. So we typically like to look for ongoing funding so that it has truly reduced it in an ongoing manner. But yes, it could be applied to it in this year to reduce it for this year.
And thank you. And the second question, I forgot to ask this of you earlier. What happens to the contingencies at the end of the year?
So the contingencies, they roll back into the general fund, and we typically, because we have to budget contingencies year after year, we'll put it back into the budget.
Essentially roll over to next year's contingencies. And have we had any expenditures in the contingency?
There was one, and I believe it came right after final budget, and it was $17,000. And it was through the animal shelter. So at final budget, we rolled their grant over. But because we rolled it in the general fund, we had to roll it back. And that did come at a board item. I want to say it was the first meeting in October or it was real close to final budget. So, and that is, I think on one of my slides here,
You listed it, yeah.
I listed 17, looking for contingencies, 1789,020. And that from the very first slide, there's a slight difference where I had it at 1.808. So.
Thank you, Marvin.
I want to break this conversation into two parts.
Yes.
One is dealing with this year's mid-year budget and then seeking advice. You're seeking advice for next year's budget.
Correct.
So let's deal with the first item first. Other questions from the board? Supervisor Stopper, you had more?
Let Mr. Toffenelli.
Supervisor Toffenelli?
Yeah, on the integrated waste management, the purchase of a tire, do you remember?
Yes.
What other costs are going to be associated with that? Do we have to train somebody to run it? More than one person to run it? Do we have to give them an upgrade because now they use it, so they're going to want more money for it? I mean, there's more than just this associated with it that we're dealing with once we purchase it, not only next year, but going into this year. Do we have those costs spread out?
I do not have the cost of the maintenance because yes, there will be maintenance. We will have to, it will be a new piece of equipment that we have that we will have to train the staff on. It is not anticipated that they will need an increase for using the equipment. It's but there are going to be maintenance costs. I do not have the maintenance cost of the machine.
Okay. I'm be interested to see that sometime coming in June, what associated with it. I understand we need it because we can't just leave the rooms on anymore. Is there, I don't see the other side of it. Is there revenue from the rims now, since they're separated from the tires and they're metal, aluminum, whatever they are? Is that something that can be purchased by an outside agency?
We can look at recycling those, I know, or selling those. I know currently we don't receive revenue. We pay to have the tires hauled, but they stopped that a few months ago because they said they would no longer take them with rims. So.
The other question I have is about the jail and the HVAC. This HVAC system, since the jail's been built, we've had issues with all kinds of things, and one of it was this. And at one time in the laundry department, we were going to have the contractor repair because we kept burning up motors on the exhaust fans. Is that been taken care of? That's all taken care of. So the HVAC now, we're past warranties on those, that they were an issue. Now we're looking to, at cost of $70,000, repair them, replace some of them. What is it that we're looking at doing here?
Yes. So this was initially budgeted in last fiscal year as a CIP project. And this is where the initial vendor, and I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. The initial vendor, when we had them put in, had proprietary software. So whenever we had an issue, we had to reach out to that vendor. So part of this upgrade was getting rid of that proprietary software upgrade so we can actually start fixing them because they were always down. And so it rolled over into this year. And during that rollover period, when we were working with the sheriff's department, we missed the we assumed something was paid for, but it wasn't in last year. And so we had to put it in this year because we missed those appropriations.
We re-encumbered the amount.
Okay.
So
thank you. That's all the questions I have right now.
Thank you. I have a couple of quick questions. One on the cannabis taxes, excise tax, and the other one is on the weed abatement that I saw up there. Didn't we budget for weed abatement in last year's budget? Is this an increase of 50,000 or is this the same?
This, I believe, is an increase of $50,000 to the weed abatement.
And how much was in our original budget?
I don't know. I can get back to you on that one. I don't have that.
Mark's there. Mark, do you know what we put in the original weed abatement budget last year for this year?
We actually did not include it for this year at the preliminary budget, so I brought it in as part of the year.
So we missed it. Come on up, Mark.
Sorry, it was overlooked as part of the preliminary budget process. We didn't have the specifics on the amounts that we would need for the chemicals for the program. We were still working on collecting that at preliminary budget, so we included it at the mid-year.
our machine working? Are we gonna be able to do it this year?
We actually just picked up our new rig from the vendor about 2 weeks ago. The chemicals were delivered yesterday. Our staff is being trained this week for the spray application for the new rig. And so we're going to send out a press release probably the next couple weeks.
All right. Thank you. Second one is on our excise tax, which is considerably down. Any
Yes,
explanation?
our excise tax is currently at 44%. We budgeted 3.2. At this rate, we're trending for 2.8. We've had a couple of permits drop off. We've seen some regulations at the state change, which essentially the greenhouses are now considered exterior, which reduces the tax level on them. And then we've also seen some permits actually reduce their size of their canopies, which also has impacted the amount. So no one item is driving it down. It's just been numerous things that I've hit that have driven that down.
And you think it's going to come back up in the spring?
We are watching it closely. Doug and I are working on it and watching it closely.
Thank you. We'll take the first item first, which is the budget for this year. Is there any public comment on this item? Any online?
There are no online public comments.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. We are here to approve mid-year budget adjustments as presented by staff. Any questions, comments, or a motion?
The rim set aside. Can you explain from the beginning what we had there and what the difference is right now?
Can you bring up that page?
Exactly where that adjustment's coming from, please?
So the 2.25 million that's there for the rim set aside, that's actually a local match that was part of a Caltrans cooperative agreement. So your board approved the co-op agreement for Wagon Trail Phase 2 for the initial design phase of that work. So this is the match that was approved by the board. So this action is really just setting it aside as reserved in the RIM fund. So that when you look at the balance sheet, you'll see that money as reserved and committed for that purpose. So it's not just, included in the general fund balance, but it's just called out as reserved for that purpose.
So as a set aside, we aren't necessarily moving forward with the planning yet on that next phase so much as we're prepared in the event that we do move forward for it. But at this time, we're not spending that money.
Correct. It's just to demonstrate that it was approved by the board. It was set aside for that purpose. It's still included in the total overall RIM fund balance. But just on the balance sheet, it shows that it was reserved and committed for that purpose. And any action by the board can be taken to ask the auditor controller to adjust that.
I can completely understand that. So with that said, we're not necessarily encumbering that money towards the project this time. They would most likely move forward in the subsequent fiscal year.
Correct.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, there's no intent to expend any of those funds this year.
No, not until we're there. Right.
Can you pull up the slide that had Wagon Trail totals on there as part of this action, this motion that we're contemplating right now? That one.
I want to be clear on all that. So increase of 21,942,109. I think that's increase too, not increase up.
So the majority of that funding is shop funding. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have, as many have, struggled with the county's budgeting system for the number of years that we've been using it. I did put in the shop funding. It did not save in that system. So the shop funding actually included a proposed budget was 0. So this adjustment, the majority of that is to include the original 10 million of shop that we had. And then the 14 million that was recently approved by the CTC and Caltrans. But then of course that $10 million had less prior years expenditures. So it was like 7. I can look up the exact numbers for you.
Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah.
It's a book.
Right, yeah, no,
Yeah, it did not save in the budget system, the shop funding during the preliminary budget, but we had other budget appropriations in that budget unit, so we didn't feel like it was necessary to, do an emergency item or anything. We just adjusted it as part of mid-year.
Other questions or a motion to approve the budget as presented by staff for mid-year? Someone's got to make a motion.
I'll move.
Moved by Supervisor Fallendorf,
Second.
second by Supervisor Toffenali. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Let's go into second phase, which is recommendations, some direction for next year. Okay, we got try to get some direction for PG&E funding, which includes the 103 coming back in.
Correct.
Disaster.
And so currently we have 1.3, I believe it's just above 1.3 million in contingencies. And we have 1 million in a set aside in that PG&E account. We are recommending to keep the audit set aside of $1 million in that account. And then I'm looking for direction on the remaining, whether that's keep it in a PG&E account or to move it elsewhere.
Let's be clear, we're giving direction for what we'll talk about in June.
Correct. Yes. So it'll come back in June.
Everybody's got their lights on. Yeah. We'll go district order. Supervisor Toffenali.
I would like to see that stay in a separate OES or disaster fund. Because every time we have a disaster, we're having to take it from other funds, either RIM or wherever that we're taking it from. At least if we set this aside, we've got it set aside for that specifically, and we don't have to attach any other funds or even go into contingencies to pull something out to address a disaster immediately. It's set aside. So that's my opinion.
District 3. Good 3. Good.
I'm 4.
Sorry.
Three over there.
Pardon?
Great.
you tried to mow.
I just wanted to ask, I want to clarify that you're saying take both the contingency from the PG&E settlement and the disaster funding to
1.3 plus the 103.
It's the 103 is included in the 1.3. So
1.3. Got it.
That was
Disaster fund.
Yeah.
Plus.
Thank you.
Supervisor Fallendorf.
I agree with Gay. I think it's not a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when. I think for years the county has had to pull from other funding mechanisms within and end up handcuffing on other projects or other needs. And I think this is a moment where the county can actually put an investment into that and then do something down the line where we have something where we're able to recover ourselves or get that cash flow going until other money start to come in for those disasters, whether it be a fire or other all hazard disasters that happen. And it just shouldn't just be, we've had flooding in the last couple of years. We've had a lot of things that have hit us.
Supervisor Stopper.
Full agreement with all my fellow supervisors. Just to add that, when we borrowed from other funds, sometimes, with the amount of time we have to wait for this money to come back on certain types of disasters and the paperwork that goes into it. Sometimes that ties up that money when it might be needed for something else that it's meant for. And this will help us navigate any bumps in the road when it comes to that also, and protects us moving forward. I think it's the right decision. And also when it comes to the structural deficit that was brought up by Mr. Hubbard earlier, that's a good point. But at the same time, our structural deficit is exactly that. It's not a deficit. And typically, even when it was outrageously $9 million plus, it would end up being a wash at the end of the year with other savings and other things going on. So, but we've tightened it up now and cleaned a lot of that up, so that could be a very real deficit in the future. But at this time, it's not putting us in a position where I think it's best serves us in the disaster fund.
I concur with all of you. Geez, how many disasters have we had? It's kind of like we might as well, instead of acting surprised, save for that day and have that so we can cash flow, because that's otherwise, to your guys' point, we're just crippling other organizations to pay Peter. So it seems like, is that direction you're seeking, Marcos?
Yes, thank you.
Are there other items that you're seeking direction on?
The $1.9 million in disaster funding that we initially budgeted for disaster, but is coming back to capital at mid-year. I just want to make sure, do we want it coming back to capital or did you want it going somewhere else?
This
For
is
me to
the,
put in next year.
does this include the $1 million you set aside for audit?
No, so this is separate of PG&E, the disaster funding. So
Oh, this-
based on the winter storms, we budgeted just over $2.5 million. And of that, the cost did not come that high. And so 1.9 is actually coming back from the budget. We put it so in mid-year, it's showing as going back to capital because that's where it was coming out of. But the question I have for the board is, did they want it to go somewhere else?
Opinions?
Disaster for now is a good holding spot in my mind. We have other things, but we can change that going into the next year.
Okay, so it's in capital. You're suggesting put it over in disaster.
That's
So it's-
my opinion for the time being,
Thank-
unless someone's got a better idea.
Supervisor Toffenelli?
I'd put it back capital improvements and may even be able to be used for the animal shelter since we have a deficit there for that. And we don't know, we haven't seen the drawings and we get cost from. But we're looking to finish that project out. And if we can utilize this money to that project, I'd like to see it go into capital improvement.
Supervisor Fullendorf?
I was gonna say animal shelter as well, but I do have a follow-up question going back to the disaster, with Ben mentioning it, this money going into disaster. Will we have a plan budget in June on how we can continue to keep replenishing the current, the 1.3? You know, because we don't have a mechanism this is one-time money. We're trying to start up a new funding line. So is there gonna be recommendations in that budget going forward for the next couple fiscal years to keep that replenished? And I know that's a policy decision, but will that be coming back? So we can figure that out moving forward into the next couple of fiscal years.
At recommended budget, we will look to provide options for the board
Okay.
to make that decision on.
Okay. So I support while I want to boost up the disaster funding, we do have an immediate need of the animal shelter. And I think this will help us plug that hole that we had a huge discussion on a couple of weeks ago.
I'll weigh in. I'm gonna vote for going to the disaster fund. Also, just because I want one extra step. If it goes into capital, people will have the impression that we have committed this to the animal shelter, and we may do that, but we're not doing that today. I want to be clear. We're giving you direction.
Correct.
For mid-year planning.
Yes.
Supervisor Hubbard,
I'm gonna
you're the decider here.
this Supervisor Fullendorf and Supervisor Garamendi.
Oh.
Right, Toffenelli saying I prefer to go with animal shelter.
So it sounds like the consensus is to put in the capital account where we could decide where that's going to go at mid-year. Does that sound right? We'll put it in the capital account where we could decide whether.
Yeah, we decide that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I do want to say though, that we should receiving some disaster funding come back, especially from some of the earlier disasters in 2016, 17, because we finished off everything and turned in all the information. So that money can be coming back to us, and that should probably go into that disaster fund since we used it. So there is funding, maybe even by June when we get to the next fiscal year, that we'll have received some of that money coming back.
We're pushing hard for that money right now. So yes.
Okay, so you've got direction to put it in the capital fund. I caution everybody that there's a $78 billion hole. So we're going to want to keep our cash in a place that's accessible.
Yeah,
and uncommitted till we figure out what's going on from above us.
I'm in agreement. I hear my fellow supervisors, and I completely agree on animal shelter. I mean, it's been so long coming and it does need to get done. At the same time, you know, treading carefully, moving forward. Mr. Toffenelli, you know, you've lived it. Yeah. So I'll take my lessons from what he said in the past, and I'll, you know, it's to be decided for next fiscal year. So capital's just as good as disaster to me.
Other questions you got for us?
And that's all I have.
We've answered everything.
Yes.
Wow. There we go. Teresa, anything you want to add?
No, just thank you. I think we'll move forward with our instructions and hopefully bring a great budget back for next year.
Very well. We've got a motion. We've carried the motion and got your direction. Thank you very much, Marcos.
Thank you.
See you.
Yes.
Don't break the copying machine.
All right. Final item is supervisor announcements. Stacy?
In compliance with Government Code 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on any meetings attended at the expense of local agency and may make other announcements or report out.
Supervisor Hubbard.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything official to report out. I will say that I was with Supervisor Woodrow at the World Pro Ski Tour, which brings a lot of attention to Calaveras County, as well as Alpine County, which was amazing. I also had a great meeting with GABA, and GABA seems to be going from strength to strength, which is the Greater Arnold Business Association. I really wanted to also just give a shout out to Mark. Thank you very much for your help in getting the Burn Buddies signed. Mark helped tremendously get that contract with Bill Cooper, which is going to help a lot of our elderly constituents in the upper Highway 4 corridor get rid of the berms. So that was one of the major concerns from last year. And we really haven't seen the need for it so much this year, but if that's something that can go on perennially, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Pollendorf.
Nothing to report.
Supervisor Toffenelli.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Supervisor Stopper.
Quickly attended a solid waste, or not the solid waste task force, the hardwood advisory committee. Our document's been kicked back to us. Because of some legal things we have to deal with, and just hoping to navigate through that and get it back to this board, the planning commission and the board as soon as possible. It's kind of on the same road as our map. So.
I have nothing to report. CEO Hitchcock.
I have nothing to report at this time.
County Council. All right, nothing for anything from the clerk.
No,
Very well. We will be moving into closed session. If you could read that in, and then we'll adjourn.
of course. Item 28, pursuant to Government Code 54957B1, Public Employee Annual Performance Evaluation, title, County Executive Officer. Item 29, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, conference with legal counsel, re-anticipated litigation, one case, significant exposure to litigation.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on those, either of those two items? Seeing none, we will report out on closed session at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good day.